Hi folks, my name is Jeremy Siskind, and I'm the author of a new book, Solo Standards for Piano, which has what's the subtitle? 8 elegant jazz piano arrangements of popular jazz standards. What does it have? It's got Embraceable You, Mac the Knife, If I Had You, I Can't Give You Anything But Love, Softly as the Morning Sunrise, Lover Come Back to Me, Love Me or Leave Me, and Sweet Lorraine. Boy, if I were you, I would pick this up. But I'm bringing that up both because I'm a shameless advertiser and because I'm going to show you around a little bit of one of the pieces, one of the arrangements, which is of Mac the Knife. And the title of this video is going to be something like, You Are Not Using Enough Grace Notes. And the whole idea is that one of the lowest hanging fruits for you as a jazz student or as a jazz pianist, one of the easiest things that you can do is to dress up your melody, to make your melodies sound better than they do on the page. One of the easiest things to do there is grace notes. We'll talk about a couple other devices. But let's get into the music, and I'm going to show you some of the things that I did in order to take this melody from a very beautiful melody, but to really make it sound personalized and make it sound great in the jazz style. And of course, then you can buy the book, you can play it yourself, you can learn, etc., etc. All right, here we go. So here's a little bit of this page of Mac the Knife. I'm going to start with the pickup into measure 9 where it says head. And I want you to just pay attention to what sorts of devices are being used along with the melody. Let's see. I'm going to have a bad page turn in here, but we'll make it work. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Okay, that's probably plenty to work with. So, first of all, just stylistically, you might notice that this is in a Freddie Green left-hand sort of a style, meaning that it's just repeating quarter notes chords. That style is also associated with Errol Garner at the piano. And one of the things that means is that the left hand is essentially providing no real rhythmic contribution, right? I mean, it's a huge rhythmic contribution to keep the beat, but in terms of syncopation, in terms of rhythmic life, rhythmic excitement, it's not doing any of that. So that means I'm really trying even more than usual to add offbeats to the right hand. So you might notice that a lot of phrase endings are coming in on offbeats, and I have this kind of fun thing going on where I'm crossing over and I'm hitting some of these bass notes, and those are essentially always emphasizing the offbeats as well. So because the right hand is on the beat even more than normal, I'm going to try to put the other parts onto the offbeats. All right, and so I mentioned grace notes. Definitely quite a few grace notes. Not every phrase, but I'd say roughly 1 out of every 2 phrases has a grace note. And I've talked about grace notes on this channel before, but let's just chat for a second. So in jazz, grace notes are generally simulating a pitch bend. So it's different in classical music where you really want to hear 2 clear different notes. It's kind of acting as an approach. In jazz, we don't really want to hear 2 different notes. And so, number 1, that means that we're going to use the note directly below, a half step below the note that we're targeting as the grace note. So when I'm doing a grace note for a B flat, I'm using an A natural. When I'm doing a grace note for an A natural, I'm using a G sharp, just the note directly a half step below. And it also means that I'm going to generally put a little bit of overlap between the grace note and the main note. So it's something like that. People often ask, do you use 1 finger or 2 finger, like different fingers, or a slide for the grace note? I usually use 2 fingers. If something's going by really fast and it happens to be a black key to a white key, I might use just a single finger. But overall, I am going to use two different fingers, partially because grace notes aren't always a black key to a white key. They're often something different. It is very much legitimate to use two grace notes moving into a note. So you can't probably even really hear it because the two grace notes are going by really fast. But I'm creating even more of a dramatic lead-in to that note, or a dramatic sense of pitch bend, by using those two grace notes. Another strategy that you see used a lot in here in order to make this melody shine, so we talked about syncopation, we talked about grace notes, is repetition. And this is something to learn certainly from Louis Armstrong, is that, you could think like a drummer on a single note instead of thinking that you have to create all these different fancy things with different notes. We can repeat in order to create rhythm, right? Again, we said that the left hand really isn't doing that much to create rhythm, so it's on the right hand. A third device, we ended right around here. Now the melody is D, F, F sharp. And so what are these lower notes doing here? By the way, these are F naturals. These are what we sometimes call ghost notes, which are very spooky. And I use ghost notes a lot when I have quarter notes in the melody. Because quarter notes don't really necessarily swing by themselves, but we can add in these ghost notes beneath to reinforce the swing feel and provide a little bit more syncopation. So the ghost notes are meant to be felt rhythmically, but not really heard or processed as part of the melody, right? I don't want people thinking that the melody is be-do, ba-bo, ba-bo. No, the melody is ba-da-da-da. But these are just rhythmic placeholders in order to increase the swing feel. People often ask me, what note do you choose as a ghost note? And we don't want to draw attention to the ghost note. So I usually try to choose the 1 or the 5 of a chord so that we don't draw attention, and keeping it well below the melody. Now there's one other thing going on here. If you know the original melody of Mac the Knife, it would just be D, F, G. So I've added in this F sharp as a passing tone between F and G. Let's add in an extra chromatic note. Let's look a little bit ahead to the next passage, and you're going to see even more grace notes, even more ghost notes, and a lot of the same things that we just talked about. Okay, it keeps going from there. So one of the things that's kind of fun that you can see here is that if you're playing double notes, and that's another great way to personalize a melody. So double notes, I mean, we're playing 2 notes like this. The grace note doesn't always have to go to the top note. So here you can see that the grace note is actually ornamenting the bottom note of that double note. And that's something that actually Bill Evans does quite a lot. This isn't really in Bill Evans' style at all, but I'm sure a lot of you watching are Bill Evans fans. A lot of times when he does ornaments, they're emphasizing something about a bottom note or a middle note in a chord or a dyad. And you can see that that trend continues here, putting the grace note leading not into the top note, but into the bottom note here. Again, I'm using repetition in the style of Louis Armstrong. Sorry. right? There'd usually only be 2 Gs there, but I'm making it 3 Gs. And here's another ghost note. Right, that D natural isn't really supposed to be heard as part of the melody, but it's there for a rhythmic purpose. And then here's some more passing tones. So I'm using all these tools in order to make this relatively simple melody, relatively simple accompaniment, hopefully come to life and be really compelling and interesting without being virtuosic, right? Not everybody wants to, needs to, or can play huge flourishes of 16th notes or 32nd notes. All right, so a few takeaways here. 1, grace notes. Use them. A great practice technique would be to try to put grace notes in every single phrase that you play. 1 grace note in every single phrase that you play. Other elements you can use. Repetition. You can use dyads, 2-note groups, and you can put the grace note to the bottom note if you want. I think I already said repetition. No, I didn't. I said ghost notes, and then repetition. I forgot which ones I said, if I'm being honest. And then passing tones, chromatic passing tones, connecting between notes with some amount of chromaticism is going to help make your melodies really shine. So hopefully it's available by now. If it is, check out Solo Standards for piano. If not, maybe we can pre-order it. Maybe we can work something out. It'll be available at some point this fall. And if you do, like this kind of thing, it's actually covered in Jazz Piano Fundamentals Book 1. In some of the first few chapters, we talk a lot about personalizing melodies, making them your own. Okay, since we talked about grace notes, can you use the word grace if you've made it all the way to the end of this video? It's good to see you all. Take care.